This video was made possible by Ting Mobile. Get $25 off your next phone plan by going to hai.ting.com. Alright, well, in a second we have to talk about something that is not funny at all, so just to avoid starting off the video on a complete bummer, here's a picture of Brian from Real Engineering's evil twin brother, Graham from Meal Bingineering. And that's a real photo right there. I know because I photoshopped it myself. Okay, so in December of 1988, Pan Am Flight 103 from London to New York was tragically taken down by a terrorist bombing as it flew over the small town of Lockerbie, Scotland, killing the 259 people in the plane and 11 more on the ground. Ultimately, this crime, which mostly killed Americans, led to the trial of 2 Libyans, which took place in the Netherlands, but actually in Scotland, or more specifically an area of the Netherlands that was temporarily made part of Scotland. Why? Well, welcome to the wacky wild world of international law. So, when this very bad thing happened, a joint investigation by the US and UK concluded the culprits were 2 alleged Libyan security agents who had worked for Libyan Airlines, and so, as is tradition when you think someone did a murder, the US and UK respectively issued an indictment and warrant demanding that Libya extradite the accused to the UK and US. Now, there are a bunch of different pieces of international law at play here. The US justified the extradition under the Organization of American States Convention on Terrorism of 1971, and the UK justified it under the European Convention on the Suppression of Terrorism of 1977. But despite both of those treaties having very official-sounding names, Libya responded with a big, no, mostly relying on the succinctly named 1971 Convention for the Suppression of Unlawful Acts Against the Safety of Civil Aviation. But this video isn't actually about any of the specifics of any of those treaties, because the truth is, the reason we got this weird Scottish trial in non-Scot land isn't because of the stringent guidelines and intricacies of international law. And that's because, much like the Tooth Fairy or the YouTube Community Guidelines, international law is, well, kind of fake. Most of international law is less law and more a bunch of guidelines and a trench coat pretending to be law. You see, international law is fundamentally weaker than domestic law, in large part because domestic law is ultimately enforced through the state's police power. A super cool, super fun legal concept that refers to the government's monopoly on legal violence or force. But there isn't really a police power in international relations. A country can order another country to do something, but if they refuse to do it, you can't exactly arrest them. I mean, you could try, but that country probably has a military that won't be too happy with that, and then you might have a war in your hands, which historically world leaders not named George Bush tend to avoid when possible. The UN Security Council originally was supposed to kind of fix this and be the world's police power, but as you may have noticed, the UN Security Council gets along about as well as the Real Housewives of New York, and also is about as effective at enforcing international law as the Real Housewives of New York. So how did this happen? Well, the US and UK started out by going to mommy, aka the UN, which passed UN Security Resolution 731 in January of 1992, which called for Libya to extradite the subjects, but they did it under Chapter 6 of the UN Charter, which lacks any real enforcement mechanisms, so it was basically the equivalent of asking Libya pretty please with a cherry on top. When asking nicely somehow didn't convince Muammar Gaddafi, they put on their big boy pants and passed a new resolution, 748 in March 1992, under Chapter 7, which has more oomph behind it. If Libya said no, UN member nations were supposed to enact all these sanctions against Libya. And Libya did say no, so the UN did the sanctions, which didn't work, so in November 1998, the UN decided the reasons the sanctions weren't working was not enough sanctions, so they passed another resolution, 883, with more sanctions, which shockingly didn't work either, until finally the US and UK had used up all the sanctions in their sanctions purse, and after checking their other pants to see if they'd left any sanctions in them, they decided to figure out a more creative solution. And so, as you may remember from the beginning of this video 3 minutes ago, the US and UK prosecutors proposed a Scottish trial in the Netherlands. Why? Well, it was the same reason why my writer Adam is banned from medieval times: politics. There's no law that says that if a plane is bombed, the trial is done by the country the plane was over, but in the Netherlands. So why was it in the Netherlands? Well, because Libya had suggested before that they might be open to a trial there because the Netherlands is a neutral country and because the Libyans loved The Fault in Our Stars. And why a Scottish trial and not American? Well, because US prosecutors were likely to request the death penalty, which soft-hearted liberal soy boys like Muammar Gaddafi wouldn't be okay with. After the UK and US managed to get the Netherlands to agree to this, the UN passed a new resolution, 1192, endorsing the idea, which on the British side made the trial legal under the United Nations Act of 1946, a British law that said that UN resolutions can be enacted as a, quote, order in council. On the Dutch side, a former treaty between the UK and the Netherlands was signed that temporarily put Camp Zeist, a former US airbase in the Netherlands, under the law of Scotland for the duration of a 3-judge, non-jury trial plus any appeal. And on the Libyan side, the Libyans agreed to extradite. In sum, it was a triumph for justice, diplomacy, and international law. Well, except for the part where a ton of people now think the guy that they convicted for life was innocent, but let's not focus on that. Let's focus on this picture of Brian's other brother, Triam, from seal racketeering. Triam may be illegally selling seals, but you know who isn't? Ting Mobile. Instead, they're giving you great phone plans that save you money, like their new Set 12 plan, which includes 12 gigabytes of fast data, plus unlimited talk and text, with nationwide LTE and 5G coverage, all for just $35 a month. Whatever your phone usage is, Ting has a plan that fits what you need and will almost certainly save you money. If you're a low data user, get unlimited talk and text for just $10 a month and pay for data by $5 a gig. If you're a big data user, unlimited starts at just $45 a month. And as always, Ting has award-winning customer support, and switching is as easy as popping a new SIM card into your phone. Compare Ting against your current plan. You're pretty much guaranteed to save money, but to save even more money, when you go to hai.ting.com, you'll get a $25 credit towards your next phone plan.